Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Homecoming Season 2, Episodes 2 and 3. They are called Giant and Previously, respectively, so full spoilers for the two episodes. We weren't sure if we were going to cover any more of this, but lots of people asked out, both in the comments on YouTube and on Twitter, insisting that we should at least get to the end of Episode 3 to sort of get an idea of where the show was going. Before we sort of make our call. And we weren't like dead set against doing it either, because the first one wasn't a bad watch by any means. It was more just lack of excitement as well, I guess, at the same time.
It was fine.
So, yeah, I think what's interesting here is that these two episodes break down really easily into two parts, because episode 2 is essentially a very quiet episode of Monet's character just kind of like tracking down. She gets one bit of evidence that suggests like to go to this address, and then we find out that's where Audrey from the previous season, the woman who fired Colin, and she kind of like falls short. There's a lot of like, and some of the camera work here is actually pretty good. There's like her when she's like outside the window and stuff like that, where we're seeing Audrey inside the house and she's kind of like ducking and diving. And there's obviously an irony to all this when we get to the end, and there's the reveal at the end of the episode is that she's actually living with her, so she could have just walked in the front door and nothing would have been an alarm or, you know, shocking or surprising. But she's sneaking around and then follows her back out and follows her to work, to the Geist building, which is the same building. You know, I recognise the stairs because there was a lot of focus. I remember a scene in season 1 where, I forget the character's name, but the investigator, Shea Wiggum's character, when he was like sort of on the stairs talking to Colin, and I remember the space being used very well last season.
Yeah, it was very distinctive.
So it really stuck out to me. It was the same building, and she kind of sneaks in, and some guy assumes that she's there for testing what turns out to be aromas for, you know, perfumes and beauty products and cleaning products. She actually thinks she's being gassed at one point because they're sitting in the middle of this room, and it's presented very sinister with this steam's coming out of the middle of the room, this vapor, and she's kind of like, oh, to hell with this. And they're like, oh no, they're testing smells. It's a focus group, right? Is this what it is?
Yeah, it's perfectly innocent.
Yeah, perfectly normal stuff, because that's what Geist apparently mostly do. So we set up that stuff, and we set up that Audrey is kind of being flustered. Working with Geist himself is kind of troublesome. Doesn't really like her very much. Doesn't seem to know her that well. Kind of pulls her up.
That was the loudest they've ever been.
They're literally starting to fight at my feet. Like I had to kick them away there, right? But you know, she's dealing with him to the point where, at the end of the episode, he starts giving this big speech because he's the head of the company. He comes out and he's at the podium, and he's just in his like jeans, and like he's just kind of slouched over, and
he's rambling like a lunatic.
He is, yeah. He's rambling. He's dishevelled, one might say, and it's during all this where, like, Monet's trying to get to Audrey, and they sort of see each other, and they start walking towards each other, and it's sort of played as this big thing, and the harsh sort of cut to silence when the credit plays is when Audrey just kisses her right there and then, and she's like, oh, I'm so happy to see you, kind of thing,
and then it's like, what just happened?
I mean, it's a decent little twist, because the whole episode, it's like, okay, because you see Audrey at the house, and you're like, okay, this is how this connects to the main plot. And it's episode 3, which is entirely a flashback episode that actually kind of gives us enough to piece together maybe what's going on here to some extent. And we find out that Monet's character is called Jackie, and she because it's this thing where she's with like a woman who is accusing her boss or someone she works with of sexual harassment, maybe even assault. It never gets too specific.
It's just vague enough that it could be.
But Jackie gets really emotional and talks about how something similar happened to her. But it actually turns out to be this kind of sinister thing, which I actually appreciate, because one of the things we complained about in episode 1, and even though I think episode 2 worked well enough as a piece of technical filmmaking, I still didn't like it as much as season 1, don't get me wrong. I think it was still a problem for me that she was very much a blank slate, and there's nothing to latch onto as a character to care one way or another about what's going on. There's no little hints or anything like that. Obviously the tease as well, just to go with the reveal at the end of the episode, is when she's in Audrey's office spying, there's a photo of her on the wall, which is actually a running theme, because there's another photo in this episode, even in this scene actually, as she's in this meeting with this woman, where she's got like it's like, because I actually thought the photo of her in the military from episode 1 looked photoshopped when we saw it, and obviously that tied into her, washing off the tattoo as if, oh, this isn't real, like none of this is real. And it looked like this was the photo that came from. It was like the same head had been taken from this. And then again, this episode, she's got like Photoshop versions of herself in various things and situations.
Various backgrounds.
Yeah. So it actually turns out to be a little sinister in that she's actually hired to talk the victims out of reporting this and making a big deal of it. Sort of almost inspiring by connecting with them, saying, oh, it's happened to me, and the best thing I could do was just to move on and leave and go start my own new life somewhere else. And it's actually kind of like, oh, that's kind of shitty, actually.
You're actually very shitty.
You're talking them out of fighting and sticking up for themselves. This is really sketchy, and I think I like that because it's one thing for us to sit here and say, okay, we need a reason to care about her, and that's still true. Don't get me wrong, but I think finally getting something from her and learning who she really is, and the first thing we learn is something like this, like nasty,
kind of terrible.
Yeah. Even though the rest of the episode, like, her relationship with Audrey's, seems relatively healthy, in comparison to this. I mean, she does treat this like it's just her job. She does this, she goes home, and she's making an effort. She's buying the big bag of cat food.
Does Audrey kind of know what she does, do you think?
I think so, because the way she helps her after this, because what we see in the flashback is that scene from season 1 of Homecoming, where she kind of tells Colin that he's fired, essentially, and he has to own up and sign the document for what he's done with Homecoming. We find out that wasn't actually something she was told to do or officially, doing in any capacity. That was her kind of bluffing into making him sign this thing so she could then later use this and put herself in a position of power and get a promotion, because we see that she's actually treated like shit. She is the receptionist. When she gives these ideas to this other person who works there, the woman's sort of nice about it, but it's like, no, you can't come out of the meeting, it wouldn't feel right.
Brushes her off.
Yeah. So Jackie, our main character this season, it turns out is really good at playing people and really good at manipulating people, and you kind of get where this is going once it introduces these ideas. And the idea that Audrey is tasked by Geist, who she's never met until this point. She goes in to Geist and sort of brings this up. And we actually get to see new footage of Colin, because we see some little bits of the scene we saw from last season. But they did get Carnival back. He is here for a scene at least.
Maybe he'll pop up again. He's like accessible enough, right? That, we can get him for a few days here or there.
And he's with what's his face from Dollhouse, Frank Kranz, who was kind of like the slightly higher up in the company dude from last season as well. He wasn't in a lot. He was in like that one scene out at the house when he was there for dinner, if you remember right. But and they're basically getting chastised, and Geist is like, wait, what? Because the big sort of comedy cliffhanger to the scene is where he's like, hold on a second, what the F is Homecoming? Like that's his response. He doesn't know what it is, and he finds out that they've been doing these tests on these vets and making them sign waivers, and like Colin's trying to like squeeze his way out of it. He's trying to be smarmy and all the rest of it.
Geist is having none of it.
He's having none of it. You can see right through them, and he gives her like, yeah, she can take care of this. And it seems like at least from what we get in this episode, what I'm guessing here, because we do cut to Walter at the end of the episode to see kind of like how he goes wherever he's going. But we don't know exactly what the goal is, but it seems like in an effort to clear this up, to help Audrey, because it's her, girlfriend / wife. We don't know exactly. But in an effort to help her, it seems that she was in some way trying to bond with him, the same way that she did with the victim at the start of this episode, by having the military tattoo, by having the photographs. But something clearly has went wrong, and Walter, either in self-defense, I hope anyway. I mean, I like Walter from last season, so I'm assuming
it's kind of sinister that after everything he went to, he would do this to someone else.
Assuming he did do it. I mean, he was there, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was the one who.
Right. That's what I mean. It's kind of hard to kind of swallow the fact that he did do this. It feels at odds with who his character was. So I hope there's more going on than that.
So assuming, we'll get more details exactly what the goal is here, but it seems to be that because Audrey's tasked with clearing all this Homecoming shit up, that it's something to do with like covering tracks with Walter and making sure he doesn't want to necessarily go against the company or something or whatever. It seems to be what her goal was in theory, and something's went wrong, and whether he gave her the drug or she took it or there's a third party involved, who knows at this point. But it gives you some context, I think, at least at this point, as to, okay, you can see the rough line of how she ends up involved with Walter and why she had the fake tattoo and why she had the photograph and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that, because that stuff felt so random in episode 1.
And it felt even more random in hindsight by this point, up to a point of this episode where you're like, how does this reconcile with where we were as the mystery at the start of the show?
Yeah, but it does actually line up quite well for the most part.
Neat enough, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's more details to get, and we'll have it sort of clicking more into place. But it's a fine little twist. I mean, I think episode 3 is definitely the strongest, just in terms of, and it's not just because it connects to season 1. Because if anything, I don't know if I wanted it to connect to season 1 that much.
No, I kind of would have been. It feels like it would have been safer to just leave that alone.
Yeah.
Don't ruin it. And just do something fresh. So I don't think it's that it's about that connection either. I think it's that it's the most focused episode.
I mean, I think episode 2 is really focused, but I think the difference is that episode 3 introduces like real ideas, or actually that's not even entirely true. I wouldn't say that. There's ideas in episode 1 and 2. I think what it is that it introduces actual characters. It gives us characters with motivations and what they're doing. Now, I mean, I don't know like how I feel necessarily, good or bad, that finding out that scene from the end of season 1 was like, because I wonder, like, that scene where she's with Colin in season 1, was that just like a natural ending that the writers put in, and was it intending to be paid off with in season 2, or was it something they thought of to put in just for the purpose of season 2, or was it the natural ending of what they were doing in season 1? Like,
I suspect the former. I think it's more just we can use that. We can do something with that. I don't think it was the intention from the start. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Many TV shows
not at all. That. I guess the point I'm trying to get at here, though, is the twist that Audrey I'm talking about here, it wasn't actually in that position of power. We actually find out she's this kind of... Because I remember it being weird at the time, because the only time we'd seen her before that scene was when she was in the reception area. I think that's the only real experience we had with her. So it was kind of like, oh, she's actually more important than she seemed. And then this sort of reveal here is like, no, she wasn't. She was just what she was, but this was her power play to kind of move up in the world. In
some regards, it almost feels like maybe there were some people who complained about that scene in season 1 because they were like, this makes no sense. Why is she doing this? And then this was their explanation of it.
Well, those people were idiots, because that's what made it interesting. That was like,
I know.
Who is she? Why is she?
You.
Like that was the intriguing part of it, is that she seemed like she was a completely different character in that context. But that stuff, like, I guess what I'm saying is that as it was revealing this stuff, that she actually wasn't this confident. She's actually really nervous, and she's actually clenching her chair, her legs, and her knuckles are white knuckled and all the rest of it. As I was watching those moments and I was kind of like taking that in, I was like, oh, okay. And I wasn't necessarily sure if I liked it or disliked it. It was kind of this weird thing where I'm like, I appreciate what you're doing here. I'm not sure if I like this development in terms of what it does to that scene now in hindsight in season 1. Because it doesn't really matter in season 1. In the context of the scene, it's more about just Colin getting his comeuppance because he's the villain.
And that is incredibly satisfying in season 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's a way of trying to make this other character who didn't get a lot of screen time last season, like, giving her some more weight. And I do think it's kind of neat that she's become kind of a big character for season 2. I think it's something that a lot of good movie sequels do, is they'll take a minor character from the first movie and kind of and expand upon them and do something more with them. And I think that's a fine tactic. I think in this case, though, the character was so much of a blank slate that they had to just kind of completely write in some new ideas to her, because otherwise there was nothing there to kind of expand upon.
Yeah, I get that. It almost feels like it would have been more interesting if she was our connecting character for the season from the start, rather than just where we got to. More if we started with her and then expanded out to a new character. Whereas because we started with not only so Audrey was a blank slate from season 1, but it was a recognizable face, right? And there was just enough there that we kind of had a hint of mystery, a hint of intrigue based on that scene with Colin. Whereas Alex slash Jackie, comes in and it's like, okay, very blank slate, and it was a real problem connecting to her for at least the first 2 episodes for sure. And I wonder if maybe it would have been more beneficial to ease in with Audrey instead, and kind of take a different approach.
Yeah, I think I have more of a context, and there's always the chance as well that she took the drug herself because she wanted to forget what she'd done, and obviously took too much, and she like maybe she went too far with something and she wanted to forget.
Yeah, because obviously Audrey's using it a lot throughout the flashback episode. We see it's it's not quite gone to market yet. They're just preparing it for market. That billboard that we saw, get over it, is just been approved basically.
Yeah, we literally see that in episode 3, like him being shown. Here's the billboard we're going to put out. Do you like it? We literally have that scene.
Yeah, but it is like it's just something they rub on their wrists, and it like makes you less anxious. It relaxes you rather than makes you forget. And it's only the Homecoming project where they were ingesting it.
Yeah, although I feel like the way Jackie wakes up, she probably did down it.
Yeah.
That was one of the moments I laughed, actually, is when Geist accuses Colin with these vets drinking it, and he's like, well, technically they were eating it. As if that makes any difference.
As if that's so much better.
Oh dear. I mean that stuff's interesting. I think episode 3 is definitely the most interesting episode, and then the stuff with Walter, I think the stuff with Walter is the most troubling part of episode 3 though, because the ending of season 1 was intentionally very ambiguous, but you could kind of choose to believe whether or not he remembered enough of what happened or didn't, and it kind of made his final moments with Julia Roberts' character kind of sweet. Like there was this kind of like, I fully believed in that scene at the end of season 1 that he knew who she was, and that his little beat with her was kind of like him
acknowledging
saying goodbye,
it, but saying goodbye. Yeah.
And I think this scene that we get here at the end, towards the end of this episode, where he goes to the doctor's because he has like a little sort of pass out moment when he's driving the car. He goes to the doctor and he mentions that he was a vet and he had surgery, to the back of his head, and this is maybe one of the lingering side effects, whatever. And the doctor checks his head and he's like, oh, that's weird. I don't see any scars. It's healed up pretty well. That's strange. And, and the episode ends with him like shaving the back of his head just to see if the scar's there, because he's starting to feel worried that maybe this is a lie, that there's something going on. So it ends with him being kind of like, oh, because we have like the quiet, but it was the credits play of him pacing outside his window. And the shot's pretty good. The shot's nice. But I don't necessarily like that this definitively says that he, at least until now, doesn't remember anything. This is the first time he's really starting to question his past.
I agree. The only thing I will say is it's possible that this moment here takes place before the moment at the end of season 1. Maybe I'd have to rewatch and see how the timeline works, because there was definitely a bit of a time jump before that meeting at the end of season 1. Right?
Yeah, there absolutely was. I mean, if anything, it can't be that much of a time jump, no, because they actually mentioned the whole reason why Audrey's doing everything in this episode is because of the investigation. So, and that was, what led to Robert's character going to see him. So there may have been a little bit later, but it wasn't like, it's not like this was before the big time jump.
Yeah.
It was still post the narrow aspect ratio.
Yes.
Time. If that makes sense. So I'm not sure there's much of a window there, but it's possible. It's possible that scene does take place a little bit later.
I'd have to rewatch it and see for sure the context.
I can't remember if he had the beard and the taller hair at the end of season 1.
I don't remember either, I'll be honest.
Because if he didn't, then obviously he can shave and whatnot. It's not impossible, but
again, given the narrow amount of time that we're dealing with, yeah.
So, I'm not sure I love what that does to season 1. And the thing with this show is that everything is competing with season 1, because we have this different director. We do have some of the same writers, don't get me wrong. It's not completely...
Yeah, but I mean, this season has an actual composed score.
Yeah.
Which is so different to... That was one of the really unique things about season 1. We talked about a lot in the first episode of this. How unique that was and how interesting that was used, whereas that kind of just isn't the case here. It's a lot more traditional TV, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, I don't know if I'd say it's traditional TV. I think it's definitely going for more of a... It's funny because the soundtrack from season 1, while it was taken from a lot of different sources, overall we felt it was trying to do Brian De Palma, and it even used some music from Brian De Palma movies. I feel like the score here is actually trying to emulate more kind of 50s Hitchcock than it is anything else. I don't know if I'd say typical TV score.
No, not typical TV score. I just mean more in the sense of the direction doesn't feel quite as strong or confident. That, okay, we're using an actual score this time. We're not being experimental with the music choices. It feels more like a TV show in that regard to me, as opposed to the first season, which felt pretty unique.
Oh, it's absolutely less unique. There's no...
Yeah, that's what I meant by that.
Yeah, there's no question that it's less unique. It's kind of it's dipping its toe in Homecoming, but it's also got its other foot just sort of in TV. So
yeah, honestly, I think one of my biggest problems at the minute is, okay, coming into out of episode 3 is my favorite scene by far is the scene with Geist and Colin.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that Carnival is listed as a guest star in the episode. He's not a regular like he was in season 1.
I think it's a real problem that 3 episodes into a 7-episode season, so nearly halfway. My absolute favorite moment is, or my absolute favorite scene is one that is very much a throwback almost to the first season in terms of the characters and and what it's doing there, and doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like that's the tone and the writing to expect for the rest of the season. That's very much a separate moment. It's part of Audrey's journey, but it's not going to be a regular occurrence.
Yeah, I feel like that's... I think it's just because it's Carnival doing the same character, so he's just playing the character the same way, and it comes off feeling very much like season 1 did. And
right, it almost hurts it though, because I'm like, oh, that's what I like about this show. That's what I miss, and I don't have that spark, that attachment to anything so far in this season that's new to this season.
I mean, I do think it's better after episode 3. I would still describe this, though, just to compare it, because we said season 1's kind of like a long movie. Season 2, just given the episode count and the way it's kind of cut together, it does feel like just a bit of a longer movie. It does kind of very much feel like the sequel to a movie that didn't need a sequel, and it still feels like... it's
a perfectly fine sequel, but it's like not a must-watch.
It's a weaker sequel, for sure. I mean, do you want to watch more? Are you willing to watch the rest of it? I mean, it's only...
I'm not really bothered either way. Ultimately, it's like if you like, oh, we'll watch it. I'm like, okay, sure, watch it. We'll talk about it. I'll maybe enjoy some things, but I'm not enthusiastic about watching it either. At the end of episode 3, I don't know if that's true for you. Maybe you're more enthusiastic, and if you are, great. I'll get on board and do more.
I don't know if enthusiastic's the word I'd use. But
that's because what I'm thinking is, okay, we're like halfway into a show now. I'm not really enthusiastic about watching. I'm like, yeah, sure, I could watch more. It's all right.
I mean, I'm not enthusiastic, but at the same time, it's only 4 more half-hour episodes, and they actually get shorter. The last 2 are shorter than the first.
I thought the last 2 are longer.
The last 2 are longer? There's definitely a shorter one. There's like one that's only like 25 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's episode 5, and then 6 and 7 are both like 35 to 40.
Yeah. I mean, they're not like long episodes, and I mean, if we do them, it'll definitely still be in pairs, I think, just because otherwise, because this has been a decent discussion, we've had enough to talk about, but that's because it's 2 full episodes worth. Normally that'd be a rough thing to do, because we often feel that we kind of like shortchange one of the episodes, and maybe we kind of did here, but I think episode 2 genuinely has much less in it than episode 3 in terms of actual discussion points, so I don't feel that we've given it the...
Again, yeah, that's something that I am feeling. There's a lot less mystery, intrigue, compelling stuff to speculate about right now. I'm like, oh yeah, it's all very straightforward. It's presenting me these things, and some of it's interesting. Some of it is just kind of like, okay, I'll just see where this goes, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not like excited or hooked yet. And I think by the end of episode 3 of season 1, I was definitely more into it.
Yeah.
Certainly by 3 or 4. I mean, it's hard to compare because you got 7 episodes versus 10, so you're kind of, your percentages through are a little bit wonky in terms of comparison.
Yeah, this is essentially kind of like in season 1, kind of by being the end of episode 4 as opposed to the end of episode 3, I guess.
Yeah, roughly. It's hard. I mean, it's pointless to compare them.
It doesn't line up exactly because it's
It's pointless to compare them in that sense, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'm down well enough to watch more. I mean, it's to its or not credit. That's not the word to use. It's to its benefit that there's not really a whole lot else TV wise. At least well, we've got a couple of shows right now, but not a lot. And I think that's to its gain that we've probably got time to just do it for the sake of doing it. But I have to admit, like I'm not like super into it. It like I say, it feels like you have that movie that comes out, and if the movie's like a 9 out of 10 and you're impressed and you feel like this was a great, different, unique thing,
and then they tell you there's a sequel and you kind of go, oh, more, and then you get to it and it's like, I mean, it's a 7.
I love how I was clearly building up to a point and you just jumped in and tried to give your own point instead.
Yeah.
No, what I was going to say is that, and then you get the sequel, a year, 2 years later, and it's okay, but it's not got the spark, it's not got the creativity that the first one did. It doesn't feel special, it doesn't feel as unique, and I've seen some people say they prefer season 2, and I mean, yeah, enjoy it, great, but I just don't see it. I don't feel it.
This would have to suddenly become magnificent in the next few episodes, right? To get to that level, and I'm not sure it's physically possible with 4 episodes left for me to end up preferring this over season 1, given where we are right now. I don't think it's possible. Yeah,
I don't think it's possible either. I don't, given how I felt about season 1 by the time it ended, I don't think it's possible for this to do it. But but I'm willing to see what it does. At the very least, I think it's 2 more reviews, basically, is what I'm saying. Yeah. There's 2 more reviews. So,
by the way, I just checked the ending of season 1 to see that Walter scene.
Oh yeah.
He does have longer hair and a bit of a beard.
Oh,
not a huge amount, but a little bit.
A little bit. Well, that would imply though he's grown it on the way to the beard he has in this season.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, again, yes, you can shave and then it can regrow, but the default thing to assume, given the natural timeline,
his look there makes me think it's after season 1 but before this. It's in between, chronological, just as it falls.
Wait, what? You said that in a weird way. You're saying...
I'm just saying it is in order, essentially. Like, that's where it falls, is
yes.
Incorrect place.
Yes. So after the scene at the end of season 1 is at the end of season 1, and then season 2 is set after that, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I'm pretty sure that is what I did say.
Yeah, but you said it in a weird way, where you said that was after season 1. What do you mean it's after season 1? It's in season 1.
Because it was a flash forward, so it was after the bulk of season 1's timeline. This makes perfect sense.
There's just more succinct ways to say things that are clearer. Anyway, that is episodes 2 and 3 of Homecoming. We'll have a look at what's next. 4 and 5.
that is how numbers work.
Well, it's weird because we started off because it's an odd number season. Usually when I think of pairs, I think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's weird to think of it as the odd number first, but or the even number first rather. But anyway. So yeah, we'll come back with the next pair probably early next week. So look forward to that. You can let us know what you thought of these 2 in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters, mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here, and let us know you want more stuff coming, and to let other people on YouTube know that it's worth checking out, hit the like button. I know it's cheesy and just a cliche at this point that people on YouTube say, hit that like button. Some people say at the start of a video, and then again in the middle, and then again at the end. I don't want to drown you out with it, but it does actually help a lot because it lets YouTube know that it can recommend it out to people, and that's the free way of helping us. Of course, the non-free way is to go to patreon.com/mailfuzztv if you want to support us with a little bit of the money, a little bit of the dosh, to use a British term. You can go there and give us as little as $1 per month, and that'll help all the content coming and everything else. So go and have a look-see. And you get some bonuses for your troubles too. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening as my cats start fighting again behind me.
Yeah, I'm just kind of losing track of whatever you're saying and just watching that.
They were doing that at my feet earlier. That's where I got distracted and had to kick them away. But yes, thank you once again. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?